Hello, today I will be presenting on how to create a time budget on Excel Online. It'll be based on a 10-minute observational window, whereas a lot more in-depth biological studies or behavioral studies are based on seasonal observations or 24 hours of observation to create the time budget. But today we're just going to use a 10-minute observation window. I chose this topic because it looks at the broader topic of animal welfare. We really want to pay attention to how animals are adapting to maybe captive environments versus their natural environments. And time budgets can really give us a good look into those kind of habits and behaviors, and they also help us see how much time an animal is spending searching for mates and searching for food, which has to do with the longevity of their individualness and their species. So I also chose this topic because it's useful in the general animal behavioral science studies, and it's an important addition to the knowledge gained from an ethogram. So an ethogram is where we indicate how many times a behavior was observed, but then a time budget takes it one step further and gives us the kind of like energy budget of that animal versus just the actual. So it's an indication of how much time the animal is performing different classes of behaviors, and whereas that ethogram is just a kind of a list of characteristics, and then the time budget is the percentage of time the animal exhibits each of those characteristics. So to create a time budget, we are going to use our ethogram, and we're going to take each of the behaviors, we're going to total each of the behaviors from the 10 minutes, as in our lab last week. And I'll go into a little more depth here in a video on the next slide. But with that ethogram, each of those numbers, so for affiliative, there was 4 times it was observed in the 10 minutes. So we're going to multiply that 4 by 30 seconds to get 120 seconds. And then we're going to divide that by 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes converted to 10 minutes converted to seconds. And we're going to get 2/10. We're going to multiply that by 100 to get 20%. And that 20% is how much time was spent in the 10 minutes of that sorrel filly being affiliative. And then we're going to go down the line and do the same calculation for each of the other behaviors performed. In this next video, I have explained it much more.
Creating a time budget. So today we're going to be using Excel to create a time budget. I'm actually just going to use the example we used last week in our lab, the sorrel filly. So we're going to create a table based off of the ethogram we created. We're going to have 3 columns, one labeled behavior, minutes, and percent. So behavior here, I'm going to list each of the behaviors that were examined during the observation last week. And then the second column is going to be minutes, and to calculate the minutes, we take the amount of times in the ethogram. So say the sorrel filly we saw the affiliative behavior performed 4 times. We're going to multiply that by 30 seconds to get the amount of time total spent during the 10 minutes of the sorrel filly performing that behavior. So here we do a little math. We're going to do affiliative behavior 2 minutes, which is 120 seconds. We're going to divide that by 600 seconds because that's 10 minutes converted to seconds. And then that comes out to 2/10 we're going to multiply that by 100 to get 20% of the time spent being affiliative. And then we're going to go down the line for each behavior. So for playing, there was 5%. For being alert, it was 15%. For moving or locomotion, it was 5%. For eating, it was 35%. So the Sorel filly spent most of the time eating. According to our 10-minute observation window, it spent 5 minutes or 5% grazing. And then drinking water, it was another 10%. And the last 5% was the Sorel filly was laying down. So here we have a complete time budget. And now we're going to make a chart. So we're going to make a pie chart. We're going to update the title, give it a little descriptive title, time budget for Sorel filly over a 10-minute observation window. Nice. And then, yeah, so here we can see the percentages displayed very nicely in different colors. Here we have 15%. Yep. Okay. Awesome.
So this was a really quick and familiar example of how to create a time budget. But I do look forward to your questions,